Good afternoon and good afternoon to your listeners. I think this is not surprising. It's one thing that we expected to happen. We would remember that these particular mayors were elected only on the sole purpose of removing the ANC from power. And there were no agreements initially because there were protracted discussions that arrived at no conclusive results. So it is not surprising that we are back where we were before the election of mayors. But what must be worrying for all involved, including the DA, should be the lack of service delivery as a result of this. Government not be seen be effective because of this. I think that must be worried some to all of them.
Now, the DA speaks of service delivery as their mantra. We deliver is what they say. What would they be planning on doing? How do they resolve this situation?
I think they would have, if they want to cling on to mayoral positions, the DA would have to give in to the demands of the other parties who have elected them or helped them in getting to this point. And if they do not do that, perhaps they should take a conscious decision and relinquish all these positions where they are not willing to work with these other partners that they've put them there. Otherwise, this would perpetuate the instability that the DA has actually advocated that they do not want to see that happen. But they are enabling a situation where there is this instability because they want to be mayoral, but they also do not want to take the responsibility that if you are put in this position by a coalition of parties, then you need to include them in governance for that government to work.
Dr. Ndevu, is this another testament to the fact or the assumption that coalition governments don't work?
It is actually a testimony or a confirmation that if you are involved in negotiation for a coalition government, it should be based on clear principles around governance, clear principles around service delivery, clear principles around leadership. And once you have concluded that, it becomes easier for you to govern. But in this case, we are seeing that all political parties that have been involved in this process, the DA accepting this mayoral position, and those who have voted for them, did not think about the consequences of their decision. And until we get through that hurdle, we are going to see dysfunctional coalition governments.
Now, we heard a little while ago, speaking by Paul Moerane, saying that the mayoral committees have obviously not been appointed, MMCs not elected. Walk us through the impact of this on service delivery. I mean, in terms of timelines, immediately, are we likely to see service delivery worsening or the lack of service delivery worsening, or is this something that will unfold or unravel over the next number of days?
I think if you don't have political leadership within a municipal environment, you then create a vacuum of leadership and of decision-making. So ultimately, the highest decision-making body within a municipality is a council that would take decision informed by submission by these mayoral committee members. And if you don't have that, would mean that decisions that needs to be taken around service delivery are not actually taken. And as a result of that, the people that are going to suffer the most are those that are in the receiving end of service delivery. And this would hamper service delivery immediately because if there are challenges such as what we have seen in Soweto yesterday with protest, the officials cannot come back to the community with definitive answers unless they get political direction. And that can only happen if you have political leadership. So that's the challenge that we will see happening in all these hung municipalities.
Well, Dr. Ndevu, let's talk about the coalition partners. What power do they have at this juncture? What can they do?
I think these coalition partners that have elected the DA, they have a choice to go back to council and re-elect a coalition government or a combination of parties that would be able to work together. Because clearly, this combo that they've presented to the community of Johannesburg, the community of Tshwane and the Kuruling, does not really work. So they will have to go back to the drawing table and elect a new combo that would talk to the interests of the community. And it clearly should not be about moving one party and putting another into governance, but it should be more about delivering services to communities.
Now, with the number of hung councils that we have, would a rerun impact positively this process?
I don't know whether a rerun would present or would result in definite winners in these hung municipalities that we see. But it will certainly probably do away with smaller parties that have had 1 or 2%. I think those might be the biggest losers in a rerun. But other than that, I think the quagmire that we find ourselves in might not be resolved by rerun, but rather by conscious political parties that put the interest of the community before their narrow positions interest of political parties.